Is being recorded.
Awesome. So let's start with approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any amendments to the agenda?
I'm gonna be striking ARC allocations, but am I able to use that time to just give an announcement about ARC at all?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
Just leave it there or strike it.
Just leave it.
You just leave it. Yeah. Okay.
Can you change the presenter for the resolution in support of Election Board's engagement initiative to me instead of Jong, since Jong isn't here? And can you also add Ambrose Nyo to, I can type it, to the John Wooden Board of Governors to appointments?
Can you also strike the resolution for contact, the Jong's resolution, basically?
Can you strike SFS?
Striking SFS.
Can you strike ASRF and TGMF, please?
Striking SFS.
Can you also strike Brown Advocacy Grant?
Striking.
Can we strike capital contingency too, please?
Striking. Oh, you said. I'm like way slower at this thing. Emily, it's so hard. Yeah, okay, I still haven't added.
Okay, any more amendments to the agenda? If not, a motion.
I motion to approve the agenda.
I second.
Awesome. Sachi motions, Zuleika seconds. This is going to be a little difficult because there's so many people missing, so bear with me, everyone. Okay. IDP's not here. EVP's not here. GenRep 1. GenRep 2?
Yes.
GenRep 3?
Yes.
AAC?
Yes.
CEC? CEC? Okay, we'll come back. CAC?
Yes.
CSC?
Yes.
BAC?
Yes.
FSC? Oh, no, he's not here. It's his birthday. Happy birthday. SWC?
Yes.
TSR?
Yes.
Is Blocker here? No. Okay, let's go. 1, 2, 3. By motion of 8-0, the motion passes and the agenda is approved for this week. On to the approval of the minutes. Does anyone want to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I motion to approve the minutes from October 20th.
I second.
Sachi motions, Jonathan seconds, GenRep 1. GenRep 2, sorry.
Yes.
GenRep 3.
Yes.
AAC.
Yes.
CAC. CAC. CS.
Yes.
Oh, okay. CSC.
Yes.
FAC.
Yes.
SWC.
Yeah.
TSR.
Yes.
CEC. Okay, by a vote of 8-0, the motion passes. Oh, By a motion of, or a vote of 9-0, the motion passes and the minutes were approved from last week. Awesome. Moving on to public comment. If any member of the public would like to give public comment, you have 2 minutes to do so. Public comment can be any topic that you want to bring up to council. Just remember to use gender inclusive language, attack the idea, not the person, and remember that freedom of speech does not mean freedom from accountability. So if you would like to give public comment, use the raise hand feature, and then we will either promote you to panelist, or if you're already here, you can speak. But Alfred, go ahead.
Hi, council members. I wanted to let you all know that the Elections Board has sent over the USAC engagement plan to all of your marketing directors. We include details about the content, format, deadlines for submission, schedules for posting, and just general instructions for these graphics. We tried our best to design the formatting guidelines in a way that allows your marketing to still use your themes and creativity, but also standardized enough to be on the Elections Board platform. The rolling deadline for the submission is going to start next week on Friday. So I wanted to pop in here and just remind all council members to tell their marketing directors to submit graphics by the deadlines in the engagement plan. It's really important that the Elections Board receives the graphics from all the USAC offices by the deadlines to ensure that USAC engagement effort is successful and that there are no missing USAC offices when we do post. So please let your directors know that they're free to contact me anytime to ask me any questions. And if you also have any questions, I will be happy to answer them anytime as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Alfred. Would anyone else like to give public comment? We have a member who's trying to come in, but is having connection issues. So let's just give it a few seconds. Sachi, what is their name?
Hannah Reagan.
Okay, I see him. I'm going to promote them. At least I think I did. Oh, they should be here now. Hannah, feel free to give your 2-minute comment.
Oh, hi. Thank you so much. So once again, my name is Hannah Reagan, pronouns she, her. I am the current USAC chair, and I just wanted to give comments today to update you all on office return protocol for Kirchhoff. So Kirchhoff is currently still closed. However, we do understand that we shut the building down in kind of a rush, and student groups will need to return to their office to retrieve a few items. So I am currently getting approval for a form I created. This form will have to be filled out by a signatory, but you can send a representative to come collect things from your office. During Kirchhoff building hours, it's just going to be a more streamlined way for USAC, Kirchhoff Building Management, and ASUCLA to have contact with everyone. Hopefully that form will be available by the end of the week, and I will ask Sachi to forward that to you all as soon as it's up. And otherwise, you can email OSAC at, our email is osac1919@gmail.com if your student group needs access to your office and it is urgent. We are currently only allowing offices to be accessed if it is urgent because of COVID and because the building is technically still closed.
Thank you, Hannah, and thank you for the work that you do on OSAC. It really means a lot.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to give public comment? Going once, going twice. Okay, concluding public comment at 7:13 p.m. Moving on to our funding bodies, contingency programming. Go ahead, David.
Hi, everyone. 1 second. Okay, so this week we had a total of $916.76 and 76 cents requested, and then a total of $883.43 recommended. And this was to 4 non-USAC entities. And I can write that in the chat.
I think I
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Naomi.
I motion to approve the allocation of $883.43 to 4 non-USAC entities.
I second.
Sachi motions, Breeze seconds. Gen Rep 2,
Yes.
Gen Rep 3,
Yes.
AAC,
Yes.
CEC, okay, CAC,
Yes.
CSC,
Yes.
FAC,
Yes.
SWC,
Yes.
ESR.
Yes.
Awesome. By a vote of 9 to 0 to 0, the motion passes and the contingency allocations are approved for this week. SWC, Programming Fund.
This week we allocated $1,000 towards Sky at UCLA for a 3-day campus happiness workshop, and the money was for the facilitator.
Cool. Does anyone have any opposition to the allocation? Okay, awesome. Then the SWC Programming Fund allocations are approved for this week. Moving on to update from ARC.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, so just wanted to make the quick announcement that the ARC fund funding cycle for fall is open, and the application this quarter is going to be on a rolling basis, and decisions would be essentially, so when you submit an application, you will get a hearing email back from the chairs, and whenever your hearing is, your decision will be released on the following Sunday by 11:59 p.m. The deadline for the application this quarter is 11:59 p.m. on the 7th of November, 11/7. So make sure to get those applications in. And the reason the application deadline is Saturday of week 5 is because it gives us enough time to process all of the have all the hearings and process all of the requisition forms and everything for whatever the funds are being used for during fall quarter. So make sure to share that. And we have a post on CAC's Instagram. So yeah, that's the update. Yeah.
Thank you, Promise. Okay, moving on to TGIF.
So we're still working through the 25 plus applications for over $150,000 that we got last week, but we have decided to, so far, allocate $2,368 to Bruin Home Solutions for this cool project where they're using worms to break down styrofoam, and it's really cool. And $6,275 to FAC Bruin Bazaar and SWC Bruin Necessities for their basic needs bundle project, including sustainable masks, hygiene products, other basic needs items to be sent out. And a reminder for you and your orgs, if you want to submit an application for up to $1,000, it's due this Friday.
Awesome, thank you, Sachi. Okay, on to special presentations. First, we have a presentation, kind of Q&A session 2 for the rest of council from John Bollard. He works within ASH. I actually let him introduce himself, but he's here to talk about COVID testing.
Thanks, Naomi. Hi, everyone. John Bollard, he, him, his. I'm the current co-executive director of the ASH Student Health Center. I really appreciate being asked to be with you. I hope I can give you some very helpful information quickly. If it's okay, I'll just give you a very quick snapshot of what we're doing with testing on campus, because I think it's one of the more exciting and innovative things we're doing. So we are now in an expanded testing mode where anybody who who learns, lives, or works on campus is being tested every week. We currently have a small outbreak in one of the res halls, so we are testing all of those folks twice per week. We have a very low positivity rate, which means the percentage of those who test that end up being positive. That's a great sign given everything that's going on in Los Angeles right now. So we're testing in both Covell Grand Ballroom and we're testing at Collins Court. And we're testing about 2,000 people a day right now. On Monday, we launch a mobile testing bus, which I think is super exciting, but I'm a little bit of a testing nerd, so it's maybe not so exciting for everybody else. But we're going to take a Bruin bus. We're going to plaster it with all kinds of COVID Bruin for Bruins, free testing for Bruins, and we're going to take it out 5 days a week and park it in neighborhoods where some studies have shown us where folks live using some heat maps. And so that's going to focus on grad students in university housing, large populations of undergrads. And that will give us one way to reach out to people who are living in the broader community. We're really worried about those folks who are living around UCLA, but maybe not being tested because they're not coming onto campus. We want to be sure they have an opportunity to test. And so the mobile testing is one way. One other thing to share with you quickly is we're looking to partner with folks in Westwood to use some vacant retail space to do some pop-up testing for Bruins who live in the area. And I'm happy to answer questions about any of that. I don't want to take too much of time for updates in case you have questions.
Thank you, John. Does anybody have questions? I know I was really excited to hear about the Bruin bus and also the vacant areas project too. So if y'all have any questions about like how it works, how they're publicizing even, that'd be great to ask.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about publicity. How, I guess, especially for the Bruin bus, because it's kind of a mobile thing, right? It's not like always available. How will you all be, showing students the schedule that you're on and making sure that people are aware that the Bruin bus will be coming to them on any given day?
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's a big challenge. We've had meetings this week about it because we're hoping to launch on Monday. One is that we'll be doing direct communication with people who live in grad student university housing. There's about 3,500 people who are on that list. They're doing some things with the television screens at the Village. They're doing some social media work in Stratcom, who's partnered with us. Strategic Communications has partnered with us to get the word out. It would be really helpful to have ideas for this. And Christina's part of our work group, and she's been great. We didn't meet this week because of the launch, but if people have ideas, people want to participate in how we get the word out to people, we'd really appreciate that. I can talk also a little bit maybe about how we might use the ambassadors for that, if that's interesting to folks. Yeah, I mean, thumbs up. So let me just say something about that. There's about 100 folks who are ambassadors, and probably a lot of you know what that is during this COVID time. But our thinking is that if there's a way that we could take the test to them by having test packets that we could have delivered to apartment buildings that we could make available for people, the ambassadors, to distribute. The key thing is testing. We know that the more you test, the more you're able to contain this virus. And we know that other campuses around the country have had various levels of success. Most have not had a lot of success. And so we want to test as much as possible, because a robust testing, tracing, and isolation program is really the key to being able to open the campus more broadly in winter quarter and then more broadly in spring quarter. We can't do that if we have high positivity rates. So using those ambassadors to kind of help us get the word out, get the test out, we think might be a winning solution to get folks to test.
Awesome. Jonathan?
I was going to ask, but I'm pretty sure you've already answered it. Just confirming that all testing is free regardless of what insurance students may or may not have.
Yes, thanks, Jonathan, for the question. We went a couple of weeks ago, we converted everything to free for students because with the exception of antibody testing, but not too many people are doing that. We know it was confusing before. Non-ship students were paying a fortune and being pushed to go to the county to test. Now everything is free. All of the asymptomatic testing that we're doing for faculty, staff, and students is free. If people have family members that they live with in university housing, we're going to test them as well. But we want it to be as accessible as possible with few obstacles.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. So we have Justin and then Sachi.
Hey, thanks for coming out here. Yeah, I wanted to ask about your thoughts on digital contact tracing apps. I heard that, well, I'm not sure if you were aware, but some folks from with an app called Novid came to council recently and kind of gave us their thoughts on it. So I was wondering your thoughts and like the thoughts of UCLA.
Sure, thanks. That's a great question. We've been thinking for a long time since this all started, and we started thinking about testing. I was put in charge of the symptom monitoring, testing, contact tracing work group for campus. So I've been working on this for about 6 months. And we've been interested in having an app to help us with contact tracing. UCLA is a world-class institution with scientists and innovators and everything else. So we should be using technology in whatever ways we can to battle this virus. I saw the Novid thing. I have a meeting coming up with them to learn more about it. The campus has committed to a UC-wide pilot, and I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be good. It's the Apple Google app, and early on there were concerns about privacy with that because they were using some GPS technology instead of just Bluetooth. It's now a Bluetooth-based app that really protects anonymity. It requires people to opt in. If you test positive, it requires you to opt to release that. Nobody knows who you are. As I'm sure you know, the Bluetooth will identify people that are within 6 feet for at least 15 minutes. And that marks you as a close contact. And then you will get a ping if a person with whom you were close contact tests positive. You'll know nothing about when, where it happened or with whom, but you'll be given a message to call the ASH hotline, or if you're faculty and staff, the faculty staff COVID hotline. And then we'll talk with the individual and see whether there's a good chance there is exposure. We'll get you in for testing. It's another tool, but I think it's very cool. I think it's good that we're participating because some of the other UCs are. I think it's safe. I think the privacy piece has really been addressed. So that's going to launch in about 3 weeks.
Great. Go ahead, Sachi.
Yeah, something that you said earlier about kind of having the health ambassadors get the word out and get tests out reminded me of something that my friend told me about. Like a business was doing this for their employees. They were like sending out tests en masse so that basically every week at your house you received a test. You like in a package, and then you like did it at home and then just sent it back to the lab so that you have this like weekly rotation of everyone being able to have a test, and it's like right at their home. They don't have to leave. I was wondering if UCLA considered some program similar to that, or if you think it would be useful.
Yeah, it's a great question and an innovative idea for how we could get tests into the hands of students. I like that a lot. I think there are some operational challenges with that. I mean, it'd be great to be able to send tests to people who aren't near UCLA, right? Who are living in different parts of the country that and maybe world that could send them back. The good thing about this new test is that it doesn't need to be refrigerated, and it has a shelf life of 8 days. So it's possible that we could get into a situation of mailing tests out. It has a lot of operational challenges, but I like the idea, and I'm looking at it for people who have, and I won't get into all of this, but people who have midnight shifts and things at campus, that we could just give the police department or the facilities department or housing a bunch of tests so that everybody could get tested and they don't have to worry about it. Or that we could take a bunch of tests down to University Village or down to any of these places and just let people have them and use them as much as they want to use them. Let me look into the idea of mailing tests out. That's interesting.
Can I also ask a follow-up?
I was going to say really quickly, in light of like what you just asked, John, do you also want to share the idea that you had mentioned with me about like having specific posts or like drop-offs in Westwood where people can like get tests and then possibly drop them off?
Yeah, and I was thinking we could potentially use some vacant places. We could also do a kiosk or multiple kiosks. So the idea is that anybody passing by could pick up a test. We don't want them to perform the test right there because people often sneeze. It's not great that way, but they could take the test back, and then the next day when they're walking by, they could drop the test off. So that's fairly easy because we could probably staff that with some volunteer folks who would spend a couple of hours and maybe staff a kiosk. So that's one idea. We probably need some student involvement in both getting the word out and potentially staffing that.
Go ahead, Sachi.
Yeah, I really like that. Thank you too for sharing that because it kind of ties into what I wanted to say. A concern that's been presented to me about the current testing locations, while I like feel comfortable going to them and like I obviously trust you all as public health experts that they are like very safe, especially students who are immunocompromised are concerned that it's like kind of indoors, like the especially the one at Wooden. It's like, I mean, it's a big open area room. Everyone's really far apart, but it's indoors. And for high risk students, that's like an extra concern. So, having these alternative options like the bus, the kiosks, mailing tests, like so that students feel more comfortable in their own space where they know that, they don't have a risk of getting it from someone else getting tested, I think would be like useful to explore for students that are concerned about that.
It's a great point. It kind of argues for maybe having something central on campus that would be a similar thing. We do have, we've set up an outdoor testing site in front of Ash, and we're going to continue to use that for anybody who doesn't feel comfortable going into Wooden, because I really understand that. So let me think about that and see some other options. Certainly I agree that the bus and the kiosks are good ones. The more open air, the better. We do have great airflow in both the testing centers. All the CDC dictates all of that, but still, I understand people are nervous about this thing, and I get that.
Zuleika?
Hi, John. Thank you so much for being here tonight. You did mention that the mobile bus would be possibly stopping at UAA, I forgot what it's called, UA South.
Yes.
Are some parenting students there as well. So I was wondering, do the testing are they only for the students, or do they extend to like family members? Because a lot of the graduate students here also live with like their parents, or they live with other family members and children. So I was just wondering whether it also extended to them, or would there be an extra cost?
So it's a good question. The protocols that have been approved by the campus say that it's really for faculty, staff, and students or current UCLA employees or students. But it does have a provision that if the positivity rate gets to 2% in any given community, we'd expand the testing pretty dramatically to include families. But I'm getting a lot of interest on the Hill, some folks who may be faculty and residents, maybe a couple of the other folks who live up there that have families are just asking about it. And I can't find a good reason to say no. Why not test the families? The more we test, the safer we are. So I need to go back to the Vice Chancellor and see, I'm sure he'd be supportive of it, and see if we might change that protocol and just put the invitation out for families. I'll work on that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Does anybody else have any more questions or thoughts? Go ahead, Sachi.
Yeah, again, like, thank you so much for sharing all this information with us. Like, I learned so much. I feel very confident in the state of our testing. So I appreciate all the work that you and everyone at ASH is doing, and Christina too. Thank you. I wanted to, I guess, like, offer, and I'm sure my fellow council members would say the same thing, like, we would love to promote this, like, the fact that there is testing and where it is, and maybe even just like walk students through the process, because before I did it the first time, I was like, I don't want to like stick this up my nose, like, I don't know, this is weird. So yeah, I like, our office would be totally willing to help put something together and like share through our spaces. I feel like a lot of other people feel the same way, but yeah.
That's great. I really appreciate that. We'll take you up on that.
I wanted to second that too, and even just say, I think that there are a lot of students who just want to know like what the process is like. I know some students were a little concerned because they had tried to log on to My UCLA or whichever portal to schedule a test, but weren't able to. So like if there's a way in which we can disperse this information, and that'd be really helpful.
So let me just quickly say that there has been some trouble with technology, as there always is. We have a really great vendor who's helping us a lot to make it easy for you to not only sign up, but to schedule your test each week and then to get your results. But you know, they're still working out some kinks. Anybody, and it would be helpful if you share this, anybody who's having any trouble could just walk up to a test site at either Cavell or Collins, scan a QR code and get tested right then and there. So I don't want that to be an obstacle if people are having trouble with the technology. They can also email me personally, and I'll figure out how to take care of that for them.
Okay. Thank you so much. That's actually really helpful. I didn't know any of that.
I'll just put my email in the chat for people.
Yes. Okay, well, we don't want to take up too much of your time, John. We know that you're super busy, but we are so thankful that you were able to come here and talk to us. And hopefully from tonight too, we can post a little Instagram graphic about like you being able to come here and talk about testing, and we can kind of give that information that you just gave us tonight too. And then subsequently work with you to help publicize. But thank you so much for everything.
Thank you all, and take advantage of the testing and let me know if Ash can be helpful to you at all.
Yes, awesome. Have a good night. Okay. Moving on to our next presentation, we have commuter/parking services. Sachi, I'm just gonna turn this over to you.
I did not, I guess, like schedule. I think Emily on the agenda, but I do know Lisa is here from Parking Commuter Services. So
I'm so sorry. I assumed.
I
will turn it over.
but yeah, you're good.
Okay. Yeah, I'll turn it over to Lisa.
Okay. Hi, I'm Lisa Kerbling. I'm the Director of Commuter and Parking Services. Am I able to share my screen? Okay. Thank you for allowing me this time. Normally, we would have done this session last spring, but you know, that didn't really happen. So I just wanted to take an opportunity to give you a little bit of background on our programs and where we stand and what we plan on doing this year with regard to commuter and parking services, even though a lot of people aren't commuting to the campus right now. So our parking system is about 22,000 spaces. About 21% of it is used for daily visitors, and about 79% of it is used for permit holders on an average daily basis. We try and look at our revenues and expenditures over a 10-year period. Our parking revenues support both the parking operations, including the debt service on all of our parking structures and the major maintenance, but we also subsidize Bruin bus, public transit, our bicycle programs, carpools, and the campus traffic systems, including all the traffic signals. Like I said, we try and manage our financial health over a 10-year horizon, and to maintain sufficient reserve to weather unexpected financial pressures. And let me tell you, it's a good thing we did, because we are, as everybody is, in the midst of a pretty big unexpected financial pressure. We do try and structure a student and staff permit fee increases in small annual increments. We did waive the fee that we had originally planned to have last July. And we really try and be as cost effective as we can and understand the comparable market, particularly the medical center comparable market, because a lot of our space is used for medical. So this is sort of a picture of the history of parking versus access. When I first started here in 1990, a million years ago, the campus was just doing a long-range development plan that put a cap on campus-generated trips. And that was pretty much the first change from looking at parking everybody to providing access to the campus. We already had the van pool program at that time, but we really started to dig in and look at how we could avoid investing in parking and instead investing in access. In 2002, we introduced subsidized transit passes. In 2006, we rolled out the first bicycle master plan, and that was the genesis of a lot of the bicycle infrastructure that has been built since then. In 2008, we rolled out the UCLA Climate Action Plan that really looked at the impact of mobile greenhouse gas, AKA car emissions, and how we could impact that through our programs. In 2013, we rolled out the first UCLA's Sustainable Transportation Plan. And then we did an update. And then this year, a lot of our focus is on telecommuting and on the graduate student fee for transit. So the benefit of shifting the emphasis from parking to access is obviously the first benefit is less greenhouse gas emissions. But on a university campus that's very, very small, less land needed for parking is also a huge benefit. There's also an improvement in quality of life, both because of less traffic and better air quality. And then there's also dollar savings. It costs us a lot to build parking. At this point, all parking is underground, and it's actually cheaper for us to invest in sustainable transportation. So how do we facilitate access? As I said, the campus traffic systems, the synchronization of the traffic signals actually helps facilitate traffic flow and reduces greenhouse gas emissions. Through parking management, through public transit advocacy and subsidization of fares. The public transit advocacy is particularly important. We have been able to get a couple of things to happen. Antelope Valley Transit, I think 10 years ago now, we convinced them to have a transit service coming from the Antelope Valley to UCLA. And last year we got Long Beach Transit to do the same, and we continue to work on Torrance Transit. We also invest a lot of time and energy in bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, the Bruin bus, and then also education and incentive programs. So one of the things we are trying to do is review the internal and external drivers of change. There's a lot of change in the transportation industry, both in terms of technology and then what technology can lend. So for example, I don't think some of you might have been here when Bird first arrived to the campus, but that was a major change in a transportation industry that hadn't really happened before, and it had a very positive impact. While there were complaints from some people on campus about things like the disruption and, you know, the reality was we were taking car trips and putting them onto an electric scooter. And from a greenhouse gas and traffic management perspective, that was actually a very positive thing. And then obviously this year, the impacts of COVID on commute behavior and whether or not we can take that change in commute behavior, particularly the work at home, AKA telecommute behavior, and ingrain that into the campus for future. This is sort of our mobility paradigm. We have infrastructure, we have policy, and we have programs, and we invest in all of these things because all of them have impact on how we can make life at UCLA better. So things like bike lanes, traffic calming, which is infrastructure changes that make people drive slower, like the 20 is Plenty campaign. We also have a very extensive transportation demand management suite. We have discounted daily commuter parking, for example. We used to, before we rolled out the Bruin permit, you either bought a permit or you bought daily, and you didn't get the luxury of that discount if you didn't by the permit. And now staff and right now students can choose, oh, I'm only coming to campus once a week or once a month. So I can buy that day at an equivalent rate of the daily equivalent of the monthly permit. Pre-COVID, UCLA had for 2 years in a row achieved a 48% drive alone rate, which is significantly better than the 75% of the rest of the county of Los Angeles. And what's really important is we had gotten up to 14.3% of employees using public transit. We did not do a commuter drive alone, a commuter student survey last spring for obvious reasons. But prior to that, most commuter students, and this excludes all students living in university-owned on-campus housing, 34.1% of them were walking. So that's a very good rate as well. So this was our student mode split in 2019. And I apologize because there used to be labels on everything. But basically the big purple one was walking, the sort of lavender one was taking transit, and the drive alone is the red one. This also lost all its labels, sorry. The drive alone rate, again, is the red, and the transit is the lavender. I will send you an updated copy that has all the labels. So post-COVID, though, there's this move towards telecommuting. And while before COVID, only about 1 person in 100 telecommuted, right now 70% of UCLA employees are telecommuting. And what we found is we believe that this idea of telecommuting and oh no, you can't trust people to do work, and how do you manage them? Well, we've been forced to show that you can manage them, and it does work. And there's a lot of land savings and leased space savings. And so we believe that once the world normalizes, whenever that is, that we can leverage this experience, this involuntary experiment, to really keep people telecommuting, which will reduce traffic even more and make life easier for both the employees and for those of us who do have to come to campus every day. So you can see that telecommuting has reduced the miles traveled per day by about 50%, and likewise has reduced greenhouse gas emissions by also about 50% of a typical year. So while we don't think we'll have 70% of people telecommuting every single day, if we could have 70% of people telecommuting 2 days a week, that's still a big win. We are working on some COVID safety infrastructure in the short run. We have signage all over campus to wear masks and maintain physical distancing. I don't know, for those of you who've been on campus, we have the pole banners and things like that. We also have converted a lot of the traffic signals to recall mode so that people don't have to push the button to get the walk signal. And then we're doing what are called curb bulb outs, and you can see that on the bottom picture. And basically what that allows is that people who are queuing at a curb waiting for a walk signal do not have to have such close proximity to each other. COVID has had a dramatic impact on our revenue. Our pre-COVID revenue was about $55.1 million, and about 49% of it came from daily visitors and about 51% came from permit sales. Right now, we are down about 32.7 million, and we are down a lot in the daily visitor side, more so than we are down in the permit side. And that's an area we actually see recovering much more slowly than permit sales. Once campus operations sort of normalize, permit sales will sort of naturally come back, but a lot of visitors are still going to be hesitant to go to big events and crowd into large spaces. So As I mentioned, we delayed the staff and student parking increase that was supposed to take place in July 2020. And we are planning on looking at whether to delay the next one as well. I suspect that we will, although we're still looking at the numbers. We did have a commuter daily fee increase also scheduled for last July. That's also been delayed and has been deferred until July 2021. We are raising the daily patient and visitor parking rate to $14 this Sunday. But that is comparable to the Cedars and St. John's who charge $15. So even at 14, we're still lower than the comparable market. We believe we will have a partial recovery in 2021 of about 11.2 million in permits and a full recovery by 22-23, but we believe our daily patient and visitor demand will not fully recover until early 2023, which has some major impacts on our cash flow. Some things we've done to mitigate those revenue shortfalls: we've deferred all non-essential maintenance and construction. We are doing a reduction of staff through attrition, non-renewal of contracts, and there's a program through the campus called the Voluntary Separation Program, where we are paying severance plus in order to encourage people to voluntarily leave so we can avoid layoffs. We converted the VAMPO program to an employee direct lease from vendor and have cut all the subsidies from the VAMPO program. We've eliminated the vendor contract on the bike share program and redeployed the bikes to grad housing. And frankly, the vendor was going to eliminate the contract anyway. We have some COVID-19 brew and bus route modifications. And then we've also accelerated operational changes, including moving all of our event and courtesy parking and medical parking to self-service. And we're closing 2 of our campus kiosks. They're all closed right now, but when we reopen, only one of them will reopen. So at this point in time, this is what we foresee our permit fees being. Again, like I said, we are not anticipating a permit fee for staff or students in July 2021, just like we waived the one in July 2020. And we've increased the daily fee in November, but we don't anticipate increasing that either in the future, in the immediate future. Like I said, we're working on expanding telecommunication work resources. Purple Line subway construction has started. We are advocating and planning for this Polita Corridor project, which is a hopefully subway from the San Fernando Valley all the way to the airport with a stop on the UCLA campus. That's what we're advocating for, is actually a pop-up right in the middle of campus. We are continuing to work on getting Torrance Transit to have a bus to come to the campus. And we are working on Know Where You Go signage for e-scooters and bicycles, and then the Bruin Grad Pass implementation. Thank you very much for your time. If anybody has questions or comments, I am more than happy to answer them now or contact me later.
Yes. Okay. Let's go Justin and then Sachi.
I just want to say thank you for being here and going through your presentation. We really appreciate it and taking this time to talk with and interact with students. I was wondering, so us as USAC passed a resolution recently advocating for safe parking for students experiencing homelessness. And considering the low use of parking structures right now, has Transportation considered this proposal to support students?
So what I will say, we are looking at it and we will have probably a more formalized answer in the not too distant future. I will say that I personally think that there's something better we can do than allowing a student to sleep in a car. I think we have better resources than that, and we need to figure out a way to mobilize those resources so that students aren't sleeping in their car. There are a lot of safety concerns for students sleeping in their cars, particularly because we don't have gated areas, but also we did have the water main break just 3 months ago that flooded one of the structures that you guys are advocating that people park in, and that would have been horrifying if that had happened while people were sleeping there. So I think it's something the campus administration takes seriously, the issue of homeless students. And I think we are committed to finding a workable, good solution. I personally don't think sleeping in the car is the best workable long-term solution.
Thank you.
Sachi and then Zuleika.
Yeah, I have another question, but I'll follow up. Like, I totally agree with, oops, sorry, my screen. Yeah, I totally agree with you that, you know, this is not a long-term solution and not an ideal solution, but, you know, given the other avenues of advocacy that this council has done regarding students experiencing homelessness for years, this has kind of been the only thing that administration has replied to. And I think especially given the reduced capacity in parking, like we're hoping that transportation will be able to be an ally in our work. I did have a separate question regarding CAE van pool services, because I know transportation deals with van pool. So how are you maintaining these services for students with disabilities during COVID?
So we continue to operate Bruin Access service, and there are 2 options with Bruin Access service. And I will admit that I probably have to get you specific details later and more directly that you can share with everyone. But basically, there is a loop service and there is a reserve service, but it is still available. We actually haven't had a lot of requests for use since the start of the fall quarter. And we were on a call last week with other UC transportation directors, and they were also not having a lot of utilization. So I don't know if it's because people don't know about it or because of the circumstances people don't need it, but it is absolutely still available.
Thank you. Okay, Zuleika and then Promise.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and thank you for those updates. I did have a question about the Bruin bus. I've always wondered, and I've also discussed this with other students who live in family housing, why the Bruin bus wouldn't stop at in family housing. They go around to the other grad housing, but for some reason they don't stop at grad housing. So I was just wondering if there have been any discussions in regards to having the Bruin bus serve students in family housing. And I know that one of the issues was because there's the Culver City bus that also stops there, but there has been a lot of issues with the Culver City bus for a lot of our students. So I was just wondering if that has ever been discussed or if there's any discussions in actually possibly serving these students.
So the Bruin bus that serves the university apartments is actually funded by the leasees of those apartments. And so anything that they wanted to do, they would have to create funding for it. I can talk to Clinton about that for sure. I do know that they were working on this year some options for people who are not in the apartments to pay a fee to housing to also be able to ride. So certainly it sounds like in the short term, when there's not a lot of utilization, there are options that are being explored between Clinton's area and housing. But we can definitely look at that. And if you want, we can do 2 things. Number one, we could have Clinton come in and talk just about those kinds of on-campus transit and off-campus transit issues, or we could get you some information that you could share, whichever you prefer.
Thank you, Lisa. I will be contacting you. I have your email. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. Promise.
sleeping, and about the possibility for the institution to have it here for students as an option. I completely agree with you that it isn't the safest option, and that it isn't ideal for students to be sleeping in their cars. But in the interim, that like there aren't other options that have been institutionalized within the university, and this is something that a lot of students who are experiencing homelessness, who are living in their cars, have asked for, just a parking spot that is safe. Like, what is the possibility to have at least an interim um, possibility for students to have like a safe place to park to sleep? Because whether it is ideal or not that folks are sleeping in their car, it does happen. And like, it just like, is there an opportunity for that?
Again, it's not something I can answer today. I know it's something we're meeting on and working on. I will tell you a couple things. We did do an informal survey, and I'll be honest, I can't remember if it was fall of 2019 or spring of 2019, because everything is a blur for the last 6 months. But there was actually less overnight sleeping in cars than we had suspected. There was actually very little of it. Maybe it was just the timing of the informal survey that our people took. But the campus, so pre-COVID, the campus was actually working, and I was a member of a committee that was working very hard on some options that we thought would be rolled out by now. I think everyone's attention got diverted, which is not helpful, but it did happen. And so that's why some of these better options aren't ready yet. But I think that they are closer to ready than they appear to be, and we should have an answer on that. I am not the person who's going to say that safe parking is going to be approved or not approved, but I will definitely be participating in the discussions. I am just personally, I'm just not comfortable with it. But that's me, and we might find a solution that makes it work. I can't say we won't, I can't say we will. I apologize for not having a definitive answer.
No, that's completely fine. I just wanted to, I guess, follow up about your statement about the survey. I'm glad that the survey was done. I guess like the only thing that I hope that you all consider in deliberations and talking about this is the fact that although not a large percentage of students are sleeping in their cars, there is still a percentage. And it is very, very important that the institution, if able to, and the institution is able to keep those students safe when they find themselves in a situation like that. And that's what safe parking is like, that's what this is about. It's to make sure that these students are able to have a resource and a place to safely park in Westwood, in around their school, where they're not going to be terrorized by the police or by different security, and they're not going to be scared about whether or not their car is going to get towed with them in it, you know? So that's what safe parking is for. And if the institution has the ability to provide it, I think it's very, very imperative that it at least exists as an option for students who find themselves in that position. So that's just kind of, yeah.
No, absolutely. And I will tell you that the committee that was working on it last year was very serious about finding truly viable options to allow people to sleep, whether it's because they were homeless or because they were what we call super commuters, people whose commutes were so bad that honestly, if they had a late afternoon class and an early morning class, doing the drive back and forth did not allow for sleeping. So there's sort of both sides that are feeding into this issue of needing to find a way to allow for safe sleeping. So again, we will have an answer in the not too distant future. I just can't give you an answer today.
Okay. Is there a way to reach out to be able to talk more about this and potentially give input on whatever committee this is?
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
How would I go about doing that? Or
Just
how
reach
would
out to
some
me
of-
and we'll loop you in.
All right, for sure. Thank you so much. I'll make sure to send you an email.
Yeah. Just to let you know, some of the people on, so there were people from housing on the committee, people from student affairs, and then people from parking, and people I think from ASUCLA as well.
Awesome. Great. Before I pass it off to Sachi to finish, I wanted to ask how was that survey conducted? And how
It was
would-
actually I'm going to call it an intercept survey, although the people weren't actually chatted with. And we had members of our enforcement team and members of the CSO team who did regular patrols in the structures, starting at about 9 o'clock at night and going into the early morning hours, just sort of as they were doing their patrols, counting how many cars were occupied.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
it was actually a count of people sleeping in their cars versus a survey asking people if they slept in their cars.
Got it. Okay. And was it over like a
It was
period?
over a week or two.
Okay.
And it was one of the weeks was finals week, which I think maybe we misappropriately thought there might be more.
Okay. Cool. Go ahead, Sachi.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Promise said, and I'll also share too regarding the survey. I'd love to share with you all. We also did an informal survey, not a very different survey, like actually like getting anonymous, feedback about experiences with homelessness, and that I think painted a very different picture because, I think that if students don't feel safe parking in a UCLA structure, like they're not going to park there. So, what we gained from our survey was that students were parking elsewhere where they felt slightly more safe because they knew that parking enforcement would be present at UCLA. So I would love to share that in further communication. I know that I've been in contact with some people regarding other solutions, but whether it be through TSAB or any other mechanism, like my office is like tasked with transportation and infrastructure. And so I'd love to be looped in as well as other council members on those committees, especially just because we've had that, connection to students on that more like personal level because we are students ourselves. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Any other questions? Well, thank you again for allowing me this time. I know that everybody's schedules are very busy. And so taking a lot of your time for this was helpful for me, and I hope it was helpful for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa, for taking the time out of your day to come.
Okay. Take care. Have a good evening.
All right. Moving on to our next item. I see a UC system-wide contact tracing app, but I'm not sure whose item that is. And because I'm not, okay, since we're not sure whose item it is, we will actually, and I don't see anybody in the crowd with the last name of Nuno. I'm going to skip it. Actually, I think I know what happened. That was supposed to say the mental health presentation that we're supposed to have from Amy. So let's go with that instead. And Amy, I will pass it over to you for you to speak.
Hey, Naomi, thanks so much. Hey, y'all. This has been fun to just kind of be a fly on the wall here through an SGA meeting. So quickly, a little bit of background on me. I was student body president at Texas A&M 2018, 2019. So I've been out in the world just a little bit. Feels like the longest year and a half of all time, probably for everyone. But anyway, it's been really nice to get to be a part of something that is actually relevant to helping the community through COVID. I'm working with a company called Listeners on Call, which is why I'm speaking with y'all today. It's a mental health app but it's a lot different than probably other mental health apps you've heard of. When I was student body president, my platform was mental health. So I got reached out to by a lot of different mental health apps with different proposals, wanting money or wanting me to go to administration and advocate. But when I chatted with Naomi, what I like about what I'm doing now is that it's not that at all. It's just really a company founded on doing good and supporting students through this crazy, crazy time that we're in. And so essentially what Listeners on Call is doing with student body presidents across the country is making a donation to the student government of free access or free calls on our platform for students, for like y'all to be able to share out as not a competitor to counseling or not a distraction from other resources that are out there, just another resource in the mix to give students another opportunity, another outlet, another avenue to get the support they need during this crazy, crazy time. So I'll share really quickly just what, exactly what Listeners on Call does in just a couple of minutes to give you a brief overview. I know you have a packed agenda, so I won't take up too much of your time, but essentially Listeners on Call was coined early on as the Uber of empathy. It's helpful to use the Uber analogy because it's very, very similar in terms of like the actual business model, how it works. So if you've ever taken an Uber before, I assume many of you have, you pull out your phone, open the app, select, put in the address of where you want to go, and then your driver arrives. So in our scenario, it's if you want to talk to someone who has been through what you're currently going through, you pull out your phone, open the app, select the topic you want to talk on and who you'd like to talk to, and then your listener calls you anonymously through a conference call. So we're not counseling, not medical professionals, nothing like that. It's more peer-to-peer support. So for example, let's say that a student is like what you were talking about earlier, the homelessness situation, dealing with financial struggles. If they need to just talk through that experience, talk through what's going on in their life with another person that has been through college, experienced that, maybe even on your same campus, they can, go onto the app, have that connection and vent about that, share their ideas. Our platform is not encouraging, our listeners do go through training and background checks. They are trained not to give advice. They're not there to tell callers what they should or should not do. But if you've ever vented to someone, you know that a lot of the time, once you get all that's in your head and on your heart out loud, by the end of the conversation, a lot of the time, you know what you need or you know what your next course of action is. And so that's really the whole purpose, is to provide that sounding board, give students that avenue to talk through the things going on in their lives. So that's kind of the general setup of the app. So our listeners are paid like Uber drivers are paid. So with the donation for students, it's no cost whatsoever for them to try the platform. Basically, they would get a $20 credit, which would cover up to 40 minutes of talk time. So it could be 2 20-minute calls or one longer 40-minute call, just to try out the service and see if it's helpful for them. Kind of anyone in general using the app, it's 50 cents a minute. And this is really cool during the pandemic as well, because we have, we're seeing such high unemployment. And so having an opportunity for students, grad students, to also be listeners and earn discretionary income while they're supporting others through what they're going through, but also providing students an affordable way to get support. We see a ton of issues on a national scale with counseling resources and having just difficulty accessing those. Sometimes we're seeing up to in some cases 8 weeks wait time, and students try to go elsewhere, and then it's hundreds of dollars an hour. And as we know, as a student, it's just not feasible for most students to spend that kind of money. And for many, it's a choice between meals and transportation or getting support. And as you guys know, that the meals and the transportation, of course, are going to take precedent over mental health. And that's where we see things evolve into, crisis situations. So our program is very much focused on intervening before something ever becomes a crisis and trying to make that access as affordable as possible and provide what many students truly need. So in conversations with your health services, counseling services, you'll find that a lot of students don't necessarily need professional care. They need an opportunity to talk and process and be validated and understood and empathized with through the things that they're going through. Because as you know, college is hard, and it's hard on top of all the other things of life that are sometimes really hard. So I'm really passionate about what we do at Listeners on Call. It's a huge blessing to be able to transition student body president, focusing on mental health, to continuing to advocate for access for students for mental health resources, especially seeing, you know, how prevalent the problem really is across the country of not being able to access the support that we need. So that's kind of the basis, the background, the how it works, and of course, y'all don't need to make a decision tonight on whether you'd like the donation or like to share with students. That y'all can discuss whenever is convenient for you. But what I can do on my end is go ahead and share some free calls for y'all. I'll send those over to Naomi to share with the group, and that way, if anyone's interested in actually making a call on the platform, trying it out themselves, connecting with the listener, you can see firsthand what the experience is like, and kind of use that to see if it's something you'd like to share with your constituents. So with that, I will answer any questions y'all have.
Awesome. Does anybody have any questions? Sachi, is that an old hand? Okay.
Hi, sorry, I'm not able to raise my hand. I was wondering, also, I was wondering how y'all are planning to like outreach for the service for the peer counseling, and like I think I may have missed that part about like how you're planning to get the word out for it.
Yeah, so whenever like we partner with the student government, it's not like a super formal partnership. It's more just like a, hey, here's a donation, you know, help us get the word out to your students, right? Because obviously y'all are the ones at the forefront communicating with students. And so at the other campuses, we're working with a student body president or student government leaders, usually just share an email with students and then promote on social media of, hey, here's the link of how you access the free call. We work with what's called smart links. So basically when a student selects that link, they'll automatically, when they download, the link goes to a download. Sorry, it's almost 11:30 or it's 11:15 here, my time on the East Coast, and my brain stopped working a couple hours ago. So when they click the smart link, it automatically populates the free gift card on their app. So all you have to do is share the link, like, hey, if you want to try it, here's the link, and students can access really easily. And what I haven't mentioned as well is what we're able to provide too, which is just a huge perk from a student government perspective. I know how frustrating it is firsthand to be told like, oh, hey, like as administration, we've got the data, we've got the information, you know, from this study or this survey, or we have access to this, that, and the other, and you know, your terms are just short. It's hard to survey the student body all the time and get the answers that you need. But what we can do is from the students that use those free calls, we can share a dashboard with your student government that says, these are the topics they called on, this is how long they talked, how many times they called back, what was the actual impact of those calls on the caller, because we measure all of that in the duration of the call. So we can provide that data to you in a dashboard so that when you walk into meetings with administration, you can say, hey, you know, 20% of all of our students that use this code yesterday were talking on this topic, financial challenges or relationships or race relations or whatever it might be, to help kind of fuel some of your conversations as well. Any other questions?
Awesome. I don't think anyone has any questions, but I think that council would probably really benefit from actually being able to see and interact with the platform. And I think from there, maybe we can invite you back and then, you know, raise any questions or concerns from there. What do you think, Amy?
Yep, that sounds great. So I'll send you that link so that anyone who's interested can download the app, play around with it, make a call if they'd like to make a call and test it out. And then, yeah, I'd be happy to answer any questions via email, or of course, join again and answer that way.
Yeah. What I'll do then is probably forward, or I will email you and CC our council email, and that will go to like all of the council members. So that way you don't have to try to find us individually.
Perfect. That sounds great. Thank y'all so much for having me.
Thank you, Amy. And so sorry we kept you up so late.
That's okay. It keeps me young. Good night.
All right. Have a good one. Awesome. Okay. Moving on to our next item on the agenda. We have our A Seat at the Table initiative presentation. This week we have Abraham from Ideas presenting. So thank you, Abraham, for being here. We are so grateful to have you. Let me share your presentation. Please, y'all, don't judge the tabs. Okay. And if you all can, please turn on your cameras and engage with our presenters who take their time to be here. I will start sharing, Abraham, and pass it over to you. Wait, how do you share? Got it. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for inviting me and Ideas to be in this space. And so today I'll be talking about what Ideas is, some of our mission, and some of the things that we're currently working on, as well as some of the things that USAC and other students can help us with. So if you want to go on to the next slide, please.
Yes.
Oh, and just really quick, I'll introduce myself. So my name is Abraham. I'm a third-year public affairs major, and I'm currently one of the acting chairs for Ideas. So Ideas stands for Improving Dreams, Equity, Access, and Success. It was founded in 2003. And right there, you can see our mission statement. Essentially, we are a support and advocacy organization led by undocumented students for undocumented individuals as well as allies. So we do that through 4 pillars. We have an advocacy pillar, a fundraising pillar, a membership and retention pillar. And within that pillar, we have our component called USpark, which is an initiative founded by undocumented students and led by undocumented students for undocumented students. And it's essentially a peer support group. And then our other pillar is our community service and engagement pillar, which is the AB 540 project. And now that we have our structure, if you want to go on to the next page. So this year that we're in the election year, we had a lot to do. And so what we wanted to focus on is there was two main things that we were worrying about last year, last academic year. So we were worried about going into the election right now, and we were also worried about the pending DACA case at that point. And so we wanted to create this campaign. So we got together and created this campaign in order to put a couple of demands forward to UCLA administration in order to support its undocumented students. So a little bit about the history of this campaign. Back in 2017, SLAP and Ideas also collaborated on the first Sanctuary Campus campaign. Although we didn't get a whole bunch of results from that. So last year we decided we needed to update those demands and really use the time that we're in right now with the election and the uncertainty of DACA. And so when we presented these demands back in March 2020, so back in spring quarter or winter quarter, right before the pandemic hit. So we had 4 main things that we wanted from UCLA, which was plan for the upcoming DACA decision. Remember, this was back in March. So the DACA case was heard in November. And then the decision for the DACA case could have been issued at any point. But we were mostly waiting from like March up until like June. And it eventually was issued in June. But we knew that it could have happened at any moment. So that's why we needed, we really asked UCLA to have a plan of action, because we really we're kind of expecting the worst. We were expecting for DACA to be completely rescinded, and in a worst case scenario for the administration to start removal proceedings for former DACA recipients, and which some of those might even be like UCLA students. So we were really worried about that. So that's why we wanted UCLA to come up with a plan for a DACA decision. We also wanted them to increase resources for undocumented students. A lot of the programs and resources that benefit undocumented students at UCLA are funded by the UC Office of the President, and that is temporary funding, which is set to run out in next academic year. So once that funding is gone, all of the programs that benefit undocumented students might be gone. And so we asked, demanded the UCLA administration to come up with a plan and to have permanent funding for these. We also wanted more financial aid for students, for undocumented students. And then obviously protect the student and the workers. So in the case that DACA was rescinded, that would mean that that would have possibly meant that every DACA recipient could have lost their work authorization, which means they could no longer work. And if that happened in the middle of the year, that would have been really bad. And so when we presented this to UCLA administration back in March, we came up with a few different committees to work on some of these things. So one of them was a fellowship committee, another one was a financial aid and scholarship committee, another one was a campus safety, and then another one was a program and resource for undocumented students. So these committees were composed of IDEA's board members and some allies, as well as a different key faculty and administrators. So this was back in March, and in the next slide, I'll tell you guys where we're currently at with all of these. So right now, actually today, the only real victory that we've seen is in the fellowship aspects. So just today, the UCLA and DACA Bruins Fellowship was officially launched, and it's about 10 fellowships available for this year. And so this is within the Student Affairs Division, so anywhere in the BRC, as well as the Career Center, and then I believe at the Rice Center and a few others. So that is very good to see that we finally have some fellowships that don't require work authorization. And so the reason why we were so, we placed focus on these fellowships is because because of DACA's uncertainty, we didn't want to rely on DACA to be the only way that students can get employed and can receive professional development opportunities and also financial help. And so we were really pressing for fellowships that were available to non-DACA students. Also keep in mind that starting this year, really the incoming class and next year especially, if everything stays the same, none of the incoming students would have any kind of protection or work authorization, since they would have been too young to have DACA in the first place. So this is really a really big priority. There was also, when we were pushing for fellowships, we not only wanted them within the Student Affairs Division, but also within the academic division. So the latest update that we have on that is that there's a few schools, including the Luskin School of Public Affairs, the School of Education, and like one more, that have committed to some funding to establish a fellowship specifically for undocumented students. But that is, the commitment is there, but not much progress has been made on that. So hopefully we can see something coming soon. So now on to the next, another campaign demand was campus safety. So currently we are launching, there's a couple IDEA's board members that are engaging with the project to establish like a rapid response network at UCLA. And so what this would essentially be is something that in the worst case scenario that a student is detained, or there is, we get another 4 more years of this administration, and the crackdown on, and DACA is rescinded, and the crackdown on undocumented individuals is really bad, and it could potentially affect, UCLA students. So we are currently, there's a couple, like I was saying, there's a couple IDEA's board members that are working on establishing this rapid response network composed of allies, faculty, and a few other students that will be able to help in this worst case scenario. And so that's really where we're at. in regards to like what progress has been made. Another advocacy effort that we are currently focusing on is this law, it's the State Bill 77. It allows non-AB 540 students to receive scholarships or financial aid from donor funds. So this is significant because, as I was saying, we can't be reliant on DACA anymore because of its, first of all, it doesn't encompass every single undocumented student, and its future is really uncertain, especially with the election, especially with even if we do get the Biden administration, the Supreme Court, if DACA is challenged once again and taken to the Supreme Court, will probably most likely have a really bad decision issued because of the appointment last night. So we are trying to shift away from having all of these resources be centered around DACA and really expand them as much as possible to undocumented students that don't have DACA, but as well as like undocumented students that are that arrive to the U.S. later on than like the typical a dreamer, right? That you hear of that arrived to the U.S. At an early age, because a lot of the focus is placed on them. But UCLA actually has a good amount of students that are non-AB 540, and AB 540 means that they are eligible for in-state tuition. And so this law is important because it really expands the financial aid and a lot of the resources to not just DACA students, but also non-AB 540 students. But the thing about this law is that it is set to sunset after June 2021, and its future is really uncertain. And there's some advocacy efforts going on around this, but that is probably one of our priorities moving forward. I think, yeah, I think that these things right now are what, if I can summarize some of our priorities, is it's going to be expanding all of the resources and making them available to as many undocumented students as possible. So less focus on DACA and just expanding its the eligibility, expanding their requirements, as well as ensuring the safety of students in the case that we do get another 4 years of this administration, because I do think that if we do get 4 years, then DACA is probably, and any other kind of like relief is probably not going to be here for long. And so we have to start thinking about that, not only as like, as an institution, especially UCLA being, and the UC being, being one of the main plaintiffs for the DACA case. And so I think with that, they really have a responsibility for their undocumented students also being here in California, which has the largest population of undocumented students. And sorry, I went through a lot of information, but I would love to answer any other questions that you have. Any clarifications on this? I think this is about all I have.
Yes. Thank you so much, Abraham, for that awesome presentation. I'll turn it over to questions, but I did have one question before I turn it over to Zuleika. What does the pressure look like in trying to get departments and even student affairs to expand fellowships? I know that this is something that Joanna, our EVP last year, was like really vocal about, and also this is a model that's been implemented and also I think done very well at like schools like Merced, whose undocumented
UCI as well.
Oh, and UCI, whose undocumented populations are a lot bigger, but still, like, nonetheless, like, everyone should be doing this. So what does that pressure look like, and how do you think we can help with that?
So first thing, when we first presented these demands, you see, like I was saying, all of the programs that benefit undocumented students are mostly funded by the UC Office of the President. So when Napolitano first came in, there was a lot of advocacy on behalf of undocumented students because of Napolitano's past in DHS. And so that we use that as leverage for her office to really put money for undocumented students across the UCs. And so a lot of the programs that we see today, like the Undocumented Bruins Research Program, the Triple CP's on DocuSite, there's some intensive transfer experience. All of these are mostly funded by the UCOP funds, but that money is not going to be renewed, and it's going to be over next academic year. And so what we wanted to do is put pressure on UCLA to make sure that it comes out of their they don't rely on the UCOP funding anymore. And so what happened, really the thing with the fellowship, it was established because UCOP actually gave us more money this year than we were supposed to receive. So what really UCLA did was use that money to establish that fellowship. They didn't really put any of their money down. And so which, it's not, I think it's good because at least now there's something implemented and something concrete that we can use as leverage, and it won't be as hard as asking them to establish all of it from scratch. But the commitment, like I was saying, so that's within the Student Affairs Division. The commitment within some of the schools are there, like the UCLA or the Luskin School of Public Affairs and the School of Education, and I think the Humanities Division as well. They are committed to providing a few fellowships. I think about, last time I heard, it was around 10,000 each for at least 2 years. But what we hope to have is have a variety of like different fellowships ranging from academic and to student affairs and to even community-based fellowships as well. So I would guess that at least it's a little bit easier to put pressure on the academic side, since individual departments might be able to, but within the student affairs side, it looks like it might be a little bit more difficult. I think now that it's established, it might be a little bit easier to put pressure on the student affairs and development team to start using some of their own funds or donor funds as well to continue these fellowships.
Thank you, Abraham. Zuleika?
Hi, Abraham. Thank you so much for coming in and presenting. That was really, really good information. I was also wondering, like your experience, or if you know of other students' experience, undocumented students' experience with basic needs. Like, do you think that basic needs is enough? Do you have any feedback or anything that we can do on our part to help in terms of basic needs for undocumented students?
Yeah, so a large part of the UCOP funds were used at the undocumented student program, and they provided meal vouchers because all undocumented students are ineligible for things like CalFresh and other like federal-based and sometimes even some state-based funding. So a large portion of that went to providing meal vouchers when we were on campus, as well as a transportation scholarship. USP would give out transportation scholarship for commuters, and I think it was at books, transportation, and meal vouchers. Those were the three main things that USP provided, and that funding is it's not as much as it used to be, and it's only going to decline for next year. And once again, that next year will be the last year, and after that, it's kind of up to what the UCOP said. It's going to be up to each individual campus to step up and provide all these. And it just so happens that it happens at a time of election and with as much uncertainty. So that's also a big priority.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions from council? Okay. If there are no more questions, we just want to thank you for coming out, Abraham, and speaking with us and giving us all of that information. And we hope that this can also be a space where you can connect with other council members who's willing to support ideas this year, especially next week and beyond that too, because undocumented students deserve permanent solutions, not just solutions that are going to end when the president's term ends, so we are here for that. And feel free to just stick around for the rest of the meeting, engage however you want, or you can leave. It's totally up to you. Oh, and Zuleika, about how we can contact you.
So I can put my individual email as well in, but I'll put in Ideas' email as well. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me today.
Awesome. Have a good one. Cool. Moving on to our next item on the agenda, we have improving elections board connectivity with UCLA departments to increase USAC elections engagement initiatives. Alfred?
Yes, thanks, Naomi. I'm sorry for that super long title. Let me get started. Okay. Yes, so hello everyone, council members, administrative representatives, and the attendees in this webinar. I'm actually here to give a special presentation to ask for council's help and basically to vote on a resolution to help improve eBoard's connectivity with UCLA departments, and also to help Elections Board cooperate with the IT department to devise creative accessibility solutions in the face of an online pandemic. So I'm only giving this presentation for a short 5 to 10 minutes, basically to explain why I really need this resolution and just the general challenges that Elections Board is facing. So with that being said, a little bit about USAC voter turnout context. So it has been the case that the voter turnout has fluctuated around the 30% mark for a long time. There are some outliers, such as in 2019, when the voter turnout became 16.2%, a shockingly low amount. But then apart from that, the voter turnout has been consistently around 30%. And it's very important that we work to increase this voter turnout this year, and especially make sure that it does not go down this year. And we're going to try very hard to make sure that this does not happen. However, there are some challenges this year just with voter turnout. And in particular, this is an online academic learning environment. I think we all know that an online academic learning environment will cause reduced connectivity with student affairs. It will cause reduced interest in campus affairs, and it will cause a reduced sense of community overall. I think this is pretty much accepted because students are all dispersed all around the world. They're in different countries, different regions, different time zones. And it's because of that that because students are not physically on campus, because they're not physically in lectures, physically talking to each other, that the connectivity is expected to decrease. And it's because of that that I think it's very important that USAC and Elections Board work together to take proactive steps to make sure that we devise some creative solutions to work around these challenges. So to work around these challenges, improving accessibility is essential this year. The Elections Board is working for greater accessibility in candidate application packets. So far, we've been thinking about significantly lowering the signatures amount for candidate application packets, but we're still trying our best to think of a way for students to be able to submit their electronic signatures and to make sure that the submission of electronic signatures is not a significant roadblock for their candidacy. We are also trying for greater accessibility for election board official events, such as Meet the Candidates, candidate debates, and endorsement hearings. These are all official election board events that I believe and we all believe is very important for the entire student body, because this is applicable to all of them. All students pay a portion of their student fees to the student government, and it's very important that they are all in the loop about what their student government does, all of their official events, and that they are all given an equal and open opportunity to be able to participate in the process. But given the absence of physical advertising in the areas of like concentrated student traffic, this is definitely going to impact turnout at these events. And it's because of this that I believe that there should be new alternatives to make sure that this information is still being passed down to the student body. And this should be through UCLA departments, which are a reliable means of communication with the student body. And moreover, there's also a need for greater accessibility for voting resources. And of course, there is a need for greater accessibility during voting for students with disabilities. I understand and I'm aware that that there were issues last year with students with disability not being able to access the ballot. In particular, screen readers were a huge issue last year, and this is very important that we work together to fix these issues so that a certain chunk of the student body is not being disenfranchised from voting and participating in this very important process. So the elections board has had a lot and severe connectivity issues so far, just in trying to connect with the UCLA departments. So out of 150 UCLA departments, only 7 departments responded to elections board efforts to connect with them. And this was just like trying to do a general connection and also just for help with recruitment. Of all of these departments, none of the engineering departments in the School of Engineering responded. And the departments that responded were more North Campus departments with 1 South Campus department. I think already here we're starting to see an issue of a lack of engagement with South Campus majors. And I think it's very important that we catch this early onwards and try to fix this before the election season comes in spring quarter. I've tried my absolute best to reach out to these departments multiple times on email and multiple times on message center, but they have not been very successful. And on top of all of that, some departments don't even have any contact information listed at all. So it is pretty much impossible to connect with them. Yes, and I believe that the UCLA academic department's cooperation is essential to make sure that students are aware of election board events, aware of what their student government does, aware of this process that is applicable to the entire student body that is funding their student government. After all, UCLA departments are an essential mode of communication with the student body. Students definitely read emails from their departments much more than they read emails from our Bruin Post. Students engage more in general with advertising from their own departments. And it's because of this that I believe that the cooperation of UCLA departments is just urgently needed to pass down information, reliably pass down information about USAC elections, about USAC events, about just participating in this process in our engagement efforts. And I think that without their cooperation, the elections board cannot do effective engagement, and that students will not be informed about this process. Because while the election board is trying its best to do outreach through its social media platforms, we're also trying to do outreach with student affair entities and their social media platforms. This is still not enough because students, it's by chance that students can actually see this information, and this is not really as reliable as department email list. So without the cooperation of UCLA academic departments, I don't think that the elections board will be able to reach a substantive amount of the student body and just trying to get them informed and aware of this important student process of electing their new student leaders. And of course, the IT department is very important. I think working together with the IT department at UCLA may be the best means for the elections board to devise an electronic signature collection process for interested candidates. So far, the elections board has started its efforts to connect with the IT department. They're all very responsive and engaging so far, and I would hope for the cooperation and engagement to continue all the way to spring quarter and to the end of elections. So yeah, with that all being said, I really would like for council to vote on the resolution to request the deans of UCLA departments to basically instruct their departmental counselors to interact with us, to engage with us, to engage with the elections board, so that their students in all of their majors are in the loop. They're all informed about all of the election board events. And because this is basically applicable to the entire student body, and they all deserve the opportunity to know what's going on with their student government. And for this to happen, the elections board really needs the full backing and support of council. I really hope to get the support of each and every one of you to help the elections board engage in constructive and responsive communication with UCLA departments. I think that both e-board and council has a very shared and important goal to engage with the student body, to make sure that they know what's going on in the student government affairs, to make sure that they're able to participate in student government affairs. And I think that this is a goal that we should all work together on, and that we should be united and we should be presenting a united front to UCLA departments. I think for this to happen, a proactive resolution is needed to connect with these departments and to make sure that engagement problems don't pop up down the road. Because I think if we start trying to connect with UCLA departments in spring quarter, this might be too late and that the problem would no longer be fixable. So during this time, during fall quarter, when things aren't ramping up yet, I think it's very important that council should vote on the resolution just to ask UCLA departments to better engage with the with elections board, so that the students in all of their majors are in the loop about what their student government does, because it is truly an important process that I believe everyone and all students should be allowed to participate in, and they should be aware of. But yeah, like this is like my very short presentation, just to ask and basically make a plea for each and every one of council members to support me in just asking for UCLA departments to engage in conversation with the elections board. And yeah, like I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have. And I just keep this presentation short in case there were any questions.
Thanks so much, Alfred. Does anyone have any questions for him? Sachi?
I don't have a question, but just thank you so much for presenting and all the work that you're doing. I know that like we appreciate all your efforts, and the student body will appreciate it as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Ashi.
Any other folks on council have any questions to ask? All right, well, I also want to say thank you so much, Alfred, for coming out. I think, yeah, I speak for everyone when we say like how much we appreciate all the effort you're putting into increase engagement about the elections. So thank you so much. Okay, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I'm scared about appointments.
You got this, Justin. We all believe in you.
Thank you. Naomi had to step out. So
Justin, do you need me to take over?
yeah, you had a headache. It's okay. It's okay. All right. So, oh, well, actually, it's already. I believe I first, well, so I don't think so yet, Christina. So someone correct me if I'm wrong. I think the first thing to do is to invite them. Should we invite them to be a panelist? Is that Mariah's here? Okay. Hello, Mariah. Sorry, I'm struggling.
No, you're all good. Take your time.
Is the first thing to pass it off to Lalo or
Alfred.
Alfred? Okay.
Yes. Yes. So I'll be introducing her. So hi, council members. I wanted to wait, not the right one. Hi, council members. This is Mariah, the candidate for the vice chair. Mariah is a transfer student who has a diverse range of leadership experiences. She serves on the Transfer Student Coalition, where she has also founded and co-founded many activist and funding organizations, and she has also planned many events before. I think you can all tell from this resume overview that Mariah has plenty of leadership experiences leading large-scale and small-scale teams to success. I chose Mariah because of her incredible eagerness and passion to help the elections board with anything. During the interview, I was honestly taken aback about her curiosity of eBoard and just ways that we can work to make sure that it carries out its duties well. I think she would bring a unique and invaluable perspective as a transfer student. And on top of all, I'm very confident that Mariah will be an excellent vice chair and believes that she is well qualified.
Thank you, Alfred. So I believe the next thing is I'll pass it off to Mariah for their 1 minute introduction.
Perfect. Thank you. First of all, I would like to say thank you for having me here, and thank you to Alfred for the warm introduction. My name is Mariah Lima. I'm a third-year political science transfer student, and I'm very passionate about my education. A little bit about me, I'm very interested in going into a career in public policy. I'm an avid voter rights advocate, and I've just always been very interested in elections processes, and particularly the task of creating a fair and equitable student election, especially given the remote setting and the unique challenges of this academic year. I think it's going to be very interesting. I also believe that the ability of the elections board to be adaptable and to new challenges and work towards a more accessible election is paramount. And I'm very, very eager to contribute to this effort on the elections board. If given the opportunity to serve as your elections board vice chair, I would ensure that every student has equitable representation and a voice in their student government. So thank you.
Thank you, Mariah. So now I'm open it open it up to council to ask any questions.
I'm happy to answer anything regarding like elections code changes or specific things you'd like to see for accessibility, anything that you're interested in.
I mean, I don't really have a question, so I'll just, whatever. But what makes you really passionate about this role, and like, what are you excited to like get done this year?
Yeah, so thank you for that question. So I was very excited to have the opportunity to be appointed as a vice chair candidate. So I believe that student elections provide a kind of microcosm of real world politics, and I find that fascinating. But working in a remote format, things are going to look very different. And I think that presents a unique challenge that I'm very interested in specifically. So specific ways that we can work to increase accessibility and maybe even increase voter turnout this year for different student groups. I'm very passionate about that and having more better representation for underrepresented students on campus, like Alfred mentioned, South campus majors, transfer students, parenting students, and students of color, all of that. So I'm very passionate about making a difference through the elections board. So.
Sachi?
Hello, thank you so much for coming today. What specific plans do you have that you want to implement for elections this year?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's really important. So, obviously with the approval of USAC and the elections board, I definitely think some amendments to the election code are in order, considering the significant changes of a remote campus, particularly because much of the elections code is designed to accommodate in-person campaigning. I hope to work on the elections code to make it easier for candidates to run, designated campaign representatives to get their propositions on the ballot, and students to vote, all while improving the integrity of the elections. So what would this look like? Specifically, there's a goal for the elections board that I would like to support in reducing candidacy petition quotas to account for changes in voter turnout. So I know that in section 5.5 of the elections code, there's a requirement of 100 student signatures for candidacy petition. And I think that reducing that to 50 or maybe even less would help increase get more candidates on the ballot. And I think that's really important for a healthy student democracy, and other petitions as well. Obviously not a too drastic change, but just accounting for that in terms of petitions or student fee adjustment measures, lowering those percentage rates in accountants of remote campaigning. And then I think it's going to be really important that we remember to address disabled students' accessibility for their participating in the elections. So whether that means e-readers or or interpreters and other kinds of assistive technology for the digital events that we'll be having this year, like candidate debates and endorsements, all that's going to be online. So accommodating for their needs is going to be very important. And as vice chair, I would also be very eager to hear from those students specifically and what their needs are. And then I think Another task as well is going to be addressing how we're going to validate signatures because much of the elections board, a lot of requirements include signatures, and that's one of our tasks. So I think that, we're reducing signature quotas, but we still have to make sure that we're validating them in a way that maintains the trust of the student body. So whether that means using My UCLA as a secure system or potentially something else, I'm very open to exploring that. But it's going to be very important in establishing trust so that students know the value of their vote is being protected and the integrity of the election is being upheld. I also think it's going to be really important to expand the voting timeframe. In the elections board, it's 72 hours. And I know last year it was expanded to accommodate for the same situation we're still in. So expanding that to a week or possibly longer, I think is going to be really helpful in increasing voter turnout. And, prioritizing outreach for historically underrepresented groups on campus, like I mentioned before. And specific campaigns that are going to get them more involved to vote and more involved to run. So I think that's going to be really great. And additionally, kind of an obvious one, but an important one, making campaigning digital across the board and maintaining that sense of equity for all candidates and referendums and anything that's on the ballot, making sure that everyone has an equal chance of getting either approval or being voted in, that everyone has that equity. So overall, I would just ensure that the modifications or additions to the elections code are centered around transparency, equity, and accessibility, and that it only progresses the integrity of the election.
Thanks for that, Mariah. Naomi put a question in the chat. How will you go about engaging with a sometimes disengaged student body? What specific plans do you have for outreaching to underrepresented communities?
Thank you for that question. So one of the things that I've particularly thought about, Alfred mentioned as well, is reaching out to departmental organizers and going through that avenue specifically for South Campus majors, and also going through organizations that represent these groups. I've had some experience with that in the TLC and outreach to those groups specifically, and then also hearing any needs that they have that need to be addressed in the upcoming election that represent their specific group, whatever that may be. I think being really amenable to that during the election season is going to be really important. And specifically reaching out to mother organizations and either giving presentations or taking a Q&A and just making sure that that engagement is there with all of these groups is going to be critical in the upcoming election.
Thanks so much. Does anyone else on council have any other questions? Cool. I'll pass it off to you, Mariah, for your 1-minute closing.
Oh, sorry, I had a little audio. Did you say closing statement? Okay.
Yeah.
So overall, I just wanted to thank all of you for your time and consideration today. I'm very, very grateful to be here as an elections board vice chair candidate and to just meet all of my student representatives just as a UCLA student. And I hope that this interview provided a thorough understanding of some of my goals for this year and my priorities to USAC and the student body. And if given the opportunity, I would be very eager to use my time as vice chair to ensure that accessibility, equity, and transparency are always my first priority. Thank you.
Thanks, Mariah. So I think next is ARC.
Yes, so ARC's decision was 3-0-0, a positive recommendation. Mariah, we were really impressed with just the amount of knowledge that you held in terms of like elections. And we really appreciated your suggestions to make elections more accessible to underrepresented students and students with disabilities.
Thank you.
I'm pretty sure it's wait. Okay. Wait. Lalo, I'm confused. Discussion? Why am I not remembering like all the times I voted before? Wait, what's next?
I think you open it up to anyone else like who wants to give comments.
Thank you, thank you. So yeah, I'll open it up to anyone else who wants to give a comment.
Can I give a comment? Sorry, I literally like did not have the chat up, so I had no idea. That was a lost hand. So sorry about that. But yeah, I just wanted to say like thank you so much for sharing your plans with us. I'm really excited that you have like clear and specific things that you want to implement through eBoard, and I'm just really excited about your passion for the position, as Alfred said. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sachi. If there's no other comments, can I get a motion?
I motion to appoint Mariah Lima Guder to the elections board as vice chair.
I second.
Okay, so Zuleika motions, brief seconds. I'll be voting yes. Gen Rep 3,
Yes.
AAC,
Yes.
CEC. Wait, is Allison? Okay. CAC. Oh.
Yes.
CSC,
Yes.
FAC,
Yes.
SWC,
Yes.
TSR.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. For a vote of 9-0, Mariah Lima Kuderer is appointed to elections board as vice chair. I think I got that backwards, but congratulations, Mariah.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, next is Caroline Halloran. I think I saw them already in the panelists. I think I'm passing it off to Lalo for an introduction.
I think this is Alfred again.
My fault. Alfred?
You're good. Yeah, so hey everyone, this is Caroline, my candidate to be the director of marketing. Caroline is an expert who has an incredibly deep experience with graphics design and marketing. She worked as a social media intern for Student Impact and has taken on a new position as the graphics design manager. And on top of that, she is a graphics designer at the Bruins Media Group, designing graphics for UCLA affiliated customers. And she has also served as a video and graphics designer for the UCLA School of Music. I chose Caroline for her deeply impressive qualifications as a graphic designer and marketing, as well as her passion to help the elections board see its marketing campaigns to success. Given her amazing qualifications, personality, and ideas, I'm very confident that Caroline will do her job justice as a director of marketing.
Thanks, Alfred. I'll pass it off to Caroline for their 1-minute opening.
Hello, so my name is Caroline. I'm a political science major with a prospective music industry minor, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. A little bit about me. I'm a self-taught graphic designer, which shows that this position is more than just a job for me. It's a passion, you know. Graphic design was a hobby for me that I've loved doing, and I'm so grateful that it's been able to turn into a job. I've experienced not only as a graphic designer seen with my role for Bruin Media Group, but also as a graphic manager for Student Impact. Building off of this, I'm interested in the election board in order to establish an effective marketing plan to increase USAC elections accessibility, as well as being more involved with the election process. I also want to make the process as fair and transparent as possible while further representing a clean democratic process. All of the graphics that I plan to produce, if chosen, will be for the purpose of educating students about their candidates their slates, their constitutional amendments, and referendums. Obviously, we don't want to produce any graphics that advocate for the selection of any candidate or ballot item because our duty is to remain absolutely impartial. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. So now I'll open it up to council for any questions. Zuleika?
Hi, Caroline. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I was just wondering, how do you plan to make like marketing on social media accessible to students with disabilities?
Oh, yes, of course. So one of the ideas that I've had is to specifically just more target, especially because social media is now online. I think one of the biggest things we need to do is just increase the overall awareness of USA elections. Specifically, we could do that by teaming up with mother organizations like African Student Union, Indian Student Association Instagram, and just really, for example, like maybe do like story takeovers where we would take over their Instagram, they would take over ours, where people could ask questions. I think just really important just to really get USA Elections Instagram and just our platform and what we're about just really out there and to spread that awareness.
Thank you.
Thanks, Zuleika. Anyone else have any questions for Caroline? Promise?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask how you plan to uphold free and equal elections while implementing the different ideas that you expressed at your ARC interview and a little bit that you went into here today.
Okay, yes, so you mean like specifically to focus on transparency and everything?
Yeah, I think also during your ARC interview, you had mentioned some different tactics you wanted to bring forward for election board and how to like highlight the elections, the candidates, etc. So I want to know how you plan to do that while also upholding free and equal elections, so as to not necessarily whether inadvertently or not sway elections based on what is, I guess, advertised and marketed. Does that make sense?
Yes, of course. Of course, fair election transparency, that's an absolute must. One way to do this, I think, just specifically as I'm thinking as a graphic designer, is specifically we should establish specifically for the USA elections, specific templates for the candidates that can build off of. That way, everyone's, having like a similar marketing plan to follow. That way, the transparency is very apparent. Would you like me to go into more detail of some ideas that I would have?
If you would like to.
Yeah, of course. So just some like more specific details that I have to increase voter engagement and to just, like get everything out there. One idea I had was just noticing off of the Instagram right off of the bat is I think the Instagram definitely needs more engagement, and some way to do that is with animations and GIFs. I just know personally when scrolling through social media, animations and GIFs, things that move definitely draw my attention. Another idea to increase voter turnout is free stuff. Everyone loves free stuff, so I had an idea to do a raffle where students would, after they voted, would submit proof of their vote, and doing a very unique type of apparel. That way people would be incentivized to vote and would win the raffle. And yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, Promise. Sachi?
Hello, thanks for coming today. I just wanted to ask in general, like given that as we all know, elections will be completely online and online marketing is really the only strategy for marketing. Whereas, at least last year there was some candidate recruitment done in person before everything went online. So just knowing that, how do you plan to adjust to, frankly, like the increased workload and kind of increased responsibility that your role will have?
Absolutely. So I think one way to do that is absolutely through my staff and through delegation. As my experience with a graphic manager, I definitely know how to lead a team. I kind of have the philosophy of being hard, but absolutely understanding. So I know exactly how to delegate. I plan to have at least 1 weekly Zoom meetings with my staff members and to send out emails with very detailed assignments of what to expect. That way there's no confusion. And also because I have so much experience as a graphic designer as well, I don't mind picking up the workload here and there to design graphics as well. But I think the main thing is just to create that communication open with my staffers, with the weekly emails, with the check-ins over Zoom, and as well as just communicating through Slack.
Thanks, Caroline. Sachi, did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
For sure. Do any other folks on council have any questions? If not, I'm gonna pass it off to you, Caroline, for your 1 minute closing.
Yes, of course. Sorry, so I wanted to readdress the promoting equitable content. I was a little flustered, but I of course have no problem whatsoever creating transparent and equal content. As a graphic designer for Boone Media, I totally understand what that's like. I understand of creating a very like neutral content, especially when from what some of the clients request for me to do. I'm just super passionate about this job. I believe I have the experience to put forward. I have the experience and the time to, be a great director of marketing. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Caroline. Mark?
Hi, yes. So ARC's decision was 3-0, a positive recommendation for Caroline. We believe that she had some great ideas, and her marketing plan does take into consideration what worked and didn't necessarily work last year. And we believe that she's capable for this position.
Thank you.
Sure. Does anyone have any comments for Caroline?
Can I go?
Yeah, Sachi.
Okay. Yeah, again, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us your passions and experience. I'm really excited to, vote for you to be in this position. I think that you'll do an amazing job. I just want to make sure that when it comes to accessibility, that you're reaching out to specifically the disabled student community. You can reach out to me if you want, and we can provide, baseline resources, but graphic design can be extremely inaccessible. And, I'm sure Alfred knows, other people in eBoard have mentioned it in their confirmation appointments, but it was a huge issue last year. And again, considering this is like year 2 of an online campaign, we just want to make sure that like we kind of nip that issue in the bud before elections even start.
Yes, totally. I would love to connect as soon as possible if given this opportunity, so we can definitely make sure that they are represented and they make sure that they're reached out to.
For sure. I'll send you my email in the chat.
Okay, perfect.
Any other folks have any thoughts, comments? If not, a motion potentially.
I motion to appoint Caroline Halloran to the election board director of marketing. Did I say that right?
Can I get a second?
I second.
Sorry, who was that the second did? I missed it. Okay, got you. Okay, promise motion, Sachi seconds. I'm gonna be voting yes. Gen Rep 3,
Yes.
AAC,
Yes.
CEC. You can drop it in the chat if you want, Alice. Yes. CAC, CSC,
Yes.
BAC,
Yes.
SWC,
Yeah.
TSR.
Yes.
With the vote of 9-0, Caroline Halloran is appointed to Elections Board as Director of Marketing.
Thank you.
Okay, up next, we got Angel Aguilar for CS Mini. And I think I'm passing it off to Lalo.
Yeah, hey y'all. So I'll intro Angel real quick. So Angel is being appointed CS Mini, or is hopefully being appointed CS Mini Fund. He is currently the Community Programs Office Student Association Internal Chair. So he has direct access to the various community service projects within that space, up to 27 projects. And in his interview, he really showed a like understanding of how difficult it could be like applying to different funding apps, especially for folks that are like barely applying to these applications, like don't have that direct experience before. So we thought that really stood out because it showed that want to like go directly to the people that will be applying, instead of having them come to like the funding committee. And so he was really adamant about being proactive to like those that will be applying. So with that, I'll hand it off to Angel for his intro.
Thank you, Eduardo, and thank you, USAC, for having me here. Yeah, so like Eduardo said, I'm a fourth year poli-sci student, minoring in Chicano Studies. I'm from Boyle Heights, East LA, born and raised. One thing that I definitely like to talk about is the fact that I was raised by a single mother, and even then, as a result, I was kind of raised by my community, and acted as my second parent. And as a result, I've been able to really grow up with my community and get really close to them. And as a result, I've been able to, at UCLA, work closely with giving back to my community, both in my positions within the Community Programs Office and my positions with community service organizations such as READY, my involvement with SPOSA, and my involvement with basic needs on campus, and other positions. That's why I believe I'm very fit to be part of the CS Mini Committee. Having, like Lalo said, the access to, it's actually 29 community projects that already are working towards looking for funding applications for future services that they can offer to students and their service recipients. And having the direct access will, I believe, will kind of put the CS Mini Committee at an advantage. Thank you.
Thank you, Angel. So yeah, I'll hand it off to council to ask any questions they got. Sachi, is that an old hand?
Yeah, sorry, old hand.
All good, all good. Anyone else got any questions? Zuleika?
Hi, Angel. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My question for you is, what communities do you plan to outreach to in order for them to participate in this fund?
Yeah, thank you for the questions, Zuleika. I don't think it's mostly about communities, it's mostly about the projects, right? These are the funding committees are created for the projects to apply to. So I'm not really sure if addressing any communities is actually going to be helpful, but I will address the projects, and that's going to be my main focus. Again, working with SPOSA and having my position as internal chairperson, I do oversee the 29 projects, which entail both, actually entails education, projects focused on education, projects focused on health, and projects focused on social justice. So that entails a very large community of other communities that the project serve. That being here at UCLA, the students here at UCLA, students at community colleges, both here in LA and in other parts of LA. So it encompasses a very, very big amount, a huge amount of communities, such as I personally work closely with the formerly incarcerated community, and that's working with my own personal community service project, Ready. But within SUPOSA, there's projects that work with documented students, like ideas just presented. MB 540 is one of them. Work with students focusing on the homeless community down in downtown Skid Row. There's students who focus on working with students in Carson, students in South Central. So in reality, I feel like I'm working with a lot of communities. But to me, the main focus is not working with the communities, is mostly focusing with those projects that focus on those communities. And just making sure that I can help them help those communities. That's what's more important to me.
Thank you for that.
Any other folks got questions? If not, pass it off to you, Angel, for your 1-minute closing.
Of course. Again, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak and represent myself. I'm very thankful for this position, if nominated, and I believe that my work here at UCLA since my freshman year, working with not only the community here at UCLA and the students, but also having the opportunity to work with my community back home and expanding communities after that has really given me the experience necessary to advocate for them at the next step, which is helping them with the funding applications. And if elected to this position, I have firsthand experience as to what it feels like to apply to a funding application, especially as a new project director. The most intimidating factor is definitely reaching out for help, which is why I would like to employ methods of reaching out to project directors first before them reaching out to us, kind of to eliminate that intimidating factor and ensuring that they can be successful in helping the communities, which is what we're working towards. Thank you very much.
Shit, my bad. Thanks, Angel. Anyone got any thoughts or comments? Oh shit, Arc.
Thank you. Excuse me. So ARC voted 3-0-0, positive recommendation for Angel. We really appreciated your commitment to service, and we think that you will be very capable in this position.
Anyone got any thoughts now? For a motion, potentially?
I motion to appoint Angel Aguilar for CS Mini.
Okay. Okay, so like motions, promise seconds. I'm gonna be voting yes. Gen Rep 3?
Yes.
AAC?
Yes.
CEC? Can put it in the chat. CAC?
Yes. Yes.
CSC?
Yes.
FAC?
Yes.
SWC?
Yes.
TSR?
Yes.
All right, with a vote of 9-0-0, Angel Aguilar is appointed to CS Mini. Congratulations.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Awesome. Okay. Moving on to Meghana Sakar for ComBoard. Sorry, yeah, I'm just gonna be laying down. I have a headache. Lalo, feel free to introduce them.
Hello. Yes. Okay. Cool. So we have Megana for Com Board. She was previously a part of the Daily Burn, so she brings that experience on the Com Board or from like the student media perspective. But also in her interview, she was very adamant about wanting to reach out to the other organizations underneath student media and the communications board, in order to ensure that they are getting the equitable amount of attention that they need. And she was really adamant about having new ways to outreach to the student media leaders from the various other publications that are often left out of the communications board, such as potentially like having a town hall and just like a bunch of different ideas that I'll let her expand on. But yeah, with that, I will hand it off to Megana.
Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Meghana. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a fourth year political science major and global health minor. So student media, I want to start by saying student media has played a really pivotal role in my college experience. It has really allowed me to stay plugged into campus and feel like I'm part of the UCLA community. And I feel like it's more important than ever in a virtual environment for student media to thrive, because we can't share physical space. So it's really important to create space through our different outlets. So as a Com Board member, I would definitely make it my priority to support all of our different studio media outlets and get to know all of them, really get to know their values and their operations. And I really want to help further the mission statements of each of our outlets, and collaborate with each team. So thank you for your consideration today. I'm really happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you. So does anybody have any questions for Megana? I will start us off. What tangible steps will you take to do that outreach to the lesser represented magazines and other publications that I think we all know haven't been as, I guess, present in the past few years?
Definitely. That's a really good question. So I'm definitely going to make it my priority to amplify the voices of all of our different news magazines, because I think they are really great spaces for students to find community. I'm definitely going to reach out right away, email, phone call, whatever that may be, social media. I know that Com Board traditionally has only really interacted with the editors-in-chief, but the editors-in-chief are really swamped. So if possible, I'd really like to expand that to communicate with other leaders within student media and within each news magazine, and really make that a priority, so that, just so that everyone kind of feels included. And from the get-go, I would love if newer writers could know that Com Board is there to support them, not to just hand down directives or rules, but to really support their goals from the beginning. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. If not, Megana, feel free to give your 1 minute closing.
Okay, cool. So I just want to say thank you again for the opportunity. So student media has played such an important role, and I think being on Com Board during my last year here would just be the ideal way to give back to this community and the organizations that have really helped define my college experience and make UCLA feel like home for me. UCLA is made up of so many different communities and people with so many different identities. And I know that sometimes student media struggles to adequately represent all of these different groups and give them a voice. So this year I really plan on making our staff more diverse and making the community student media represents just much more representative of campus, and all of our different communities. So thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you. Ark?
Yes, so ARC's recommendation was 3-0 to 1. That one was an abstention from Noe. But essentially it's a positive recommendation. We really appreciated that you had a plan on outreaching to the different publications and how to use your role on the board. We really like that you outreach to faculty beforehand in order to learn more about the position, and we really appreciated that.
Thank you. Anyone else from Ark? Actually, you might be the only one here. Okay. Sachi?
I'm not on ARC, but yes.
yeah, I just want to say thank you for coming and sharing your goals with us. I appreciate the passion in your voice and the passion that you have for the position. So I'm really excited for the work that you're going to do this year.
Thank you so much.
Yay. I also want to say that I appreciate the enthusiasm too, and it seems like you are really willing to take initiative, and you're not like willing to accept what we have now, like the status quo, to be and remain the status quo. Like you're really willing to, take the initiative to help diversify the publications and make sure that people are being represented. So I appreciate that, and I really think that you'll do an amazing job.
Thank you.
Okay. If there is no other comments, can I get a motion?
I motion to appoint Meghna Sakar to the Communications Board.
Okay.
Second. Sorry about that.
Breeze motions. Oh, Sachi motions. Breeze seconds. Gen Rep 2.
Yes.
Gen Rep 3.
Yes.
AAC.
Yes.
CEC. Cool. CAC.
Yes.
CSC. FAC.
Yes.
SWC.
Yes.
TSR.
Yes.
And CSC.
Yes, sorry.
Cool. You're good. You're good. Awesome. By a vote of 9-0, the motion passes, and Meghna Sakar is appointed to Com Board. Yay!
Hey,
Congrats.
thank you, everyone. Definitely we'll be talking to you again, hopefully, about Comboard. So thank you.
Yay! We can't wait. Have a good one.
Bye. Good night.
Okay, Justin, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, I believe this is, I'm gonna pass it off again to Sachi. I believe this is a consent item.
Yes. So I'm excited to present Ambrose Nyo to the appoint to the John Wooden Board of Governors. Ambrose expressed in his application an excitement to get involved in space allocation processes and experience with multiple entities within UCLA. Sorry, cannot talk. So given this experience and his passion about the position, I'm very confident that he will be a great representative for the John Wooden Board of Governors.
Thank you, Sachi. I believe because it's a consent item, it's like making the floor open for folks to voice their opinions, thoughts, questions. If not, oh, Fernando, yeah. Okay, Fernando, just let me know how to actually do this. So does anyone oppose this consent item? If not, then congratulations to Ambrose being appointed to John Wooden Board of Governors. Cool. All right. Officer reports. Naomi.
Okay. Awesome. So I just have a few updates that I wanted to give y'all. SLAC, the Student Leadership Association Council, we were able to meet this past Friday, and it was a small group, so we kind of just gave updates and talked about our continued outreach strategy to the rest of the student governments. We've decided again that we're going to keep it local, and we're going to make sure that we are only really doing outreach to like the LA schools. I think there's like a movement, I'm sure y'all have seen, it's like called NSCC, NSCCL or something. There's a movement to try to get and organize students like nationwide, but I personally don't find any benefit in that. I don't think it's like particularly useful for the things that we're advocating for, and I think we're all similarly affected by COVID. So we wanted to keep it concentrated within the LA area. So that went really well. We were able to get our meetings scheduled between students, student leaders, No UCPD Coalition, EDI, and Student Affairs, and that will be coming up in the middle of November. We had our public health compliance meeting last week for the working group, and we went over a few touch points. We had a presentation from the director of fraternity and sorority life, and she went over I guess, things that are going on within fraternity and sorority life. She actually mentioned that it's been good that they have not been a major source of concern for the university. Their testing positivity rates have still been fairly low, and they're still doing their best to educate folks about how to go about reporting incidents that they've seen. They've gone over and kind of let us know that some of the reports that have been made have not been completely helpful, and it hasn't been useful to be able to identify whether or not those claims are substantive. So our office is going to be working with fraternity and sorority life to kind of put together a guide for students about how to properly report to like the dean of students or using the COVID hotline. We're also thinking of making it like a community alternatives to 911, kind of like a Cat 911 spinoff. So that's really good. And we're also looking at potential spaces to create or potential places to create study spaces on campus in the winter if DPH will allow it. So that's in the process. We have our first CAB meeting tomorrow. If you all are interested in coming out, I will be sending the link to council in our group chat. We're really excited that this is happening. I will admit the first meeting will be a lot more like technical. We're going over like the bylaws and like the really boring stuff. So if you don't want to be part of that, then you don't have to, but you are invited. Other than that, our Notes from Naomi series is out. I used the Notes from Naomi series to kind of just give students like an overview of meetings that I've been in, conversations that I'm taking part of. So that's really good. And then the last thing I'll mention is my COVID-19 advisory team really wants to push for campus fee transparency. I think that they generally understand the fact that the university isn't all ready to return fees, but they want to demand for that transparency to kind of be like told to students. So I'm working on a letter with them. They actually wrote the letter, and I'm going to be signing on. I will send it in our council group chat if you all are interested in signing on, or if you have any questions or concerns. But yeah, that's what's going on in my field. And I think since IVP has a written report, EVP, I'm sure Aiden will link it. AC?
Yeah. Okay, so real quick for me, I've been like in a lot of meetings. I had my FEC and executive board meeting, and I'm kind of like worried right now. I guess like just a comment I wanted to make. They're thinking of moving like pass no pass back to week 6 for next quarter. So I'm kind of like working around that right now and trying to figure out keeping it at least week 9. Given that like no situations have really changed, I don't know why they're trying to change them, but that's like an issue going on right now. I guess aside from that, I received my check already and like already started dispersing to students our Books for Bruins funds. And we had our first gen and AFGU meeting like event last week. It's going to be posted hopefully soon. And finally, okay, we later this week, Friday and Saturday, we're looking to posting 2 resource guides that our team, like Sanctuary Campus, has been working on, and Academic Senate. One is on like academic accommodation, so students can know because I know students are already starting to like, have like freakouts over like professors being unaccommodating. So we kind of want to explain what academic senate does and like things that they can remind professors using certain language. So we're releasing that soon, as well as like a mental health resource guide that Sanctuary Campus has been working on for like quite a while, just kind of breaking down for students where they can find certain resources. And finally, next week, we're looking into having an event. And I know like some of y'all already, like I told y'all to reach out to me, and or like I reached out to you personally. So we're having our event with the mother organizations for a healing space November 5th from 6 to 8 p.m. For the election season. So yeah, a lot of planning. Oh, and then I'm meeting on Friday again. Well, I've been meeting with them like for some time, but with like all the AACs of all the UCs in terms of like kind of organizing at the UC wide level to make sure that like we're being like, I guess the UC is being as accommodating as possible, because I don't know, other universities aren't like really breaking this down, but it's just stuff I'm wrapping my head around. It's been a lot of like challenging stuff I'm trying to figure out right now, but yeah, that's all for me.
Thank you, Breeze. Jessica?
No updates from me. Thank you.
Cool. Josh?
Hey, everybody, just a quick update. We do have elections next week. Elections actually start on campus on Friday, both in Ackerman and in Bradley. Hammer Museum currently has their federal election voting open currently right now. I also sent you a post-election debrief session hosted by Student Affairs. There will be quite a few different debrief sessions, but Student Affairs is hosting one. I sent the flyer in your inbox. All of you should have it. And if you could help us share that, that would be great. Again, we cannot emphasize enough. We are anticipating extremely long lines on Monday and Tuesday. So if you can vote early and encourage your peers to vote early, especially if they're voting in person, please make sure that they do that and don't wait till Tuesday to vote. Of course, they can, but just anticipate that there may be long lines. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Josh. Patty?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Josh, for helping give my update as well about our voting centers available on campus. And feel free to reach out if you have any questions or need any support to our teams to answer any questions from your constituents. So thank you all. Have a great night.
Yay, great. Sachi or Christina, did y'all want to give any? No, cool. Awesome. Okay, moving on to new business. Our last item of the night, we have a resolution in support of the election board's engagement initiative. Take it away, Sachi.
Hello, hello. I can share my screen. Okay, cool. So I think that Alfred did the best possible job in introducing and presenting the content of this resolution. Kind of was summarized in the presentation you gave earlier, but I'll go to the therefore let it be resolved. So I think there's some important specifics that we would call upon for deans of schools, departmental counselors, people within academic departments to really help them in our get out the vote efforts, as well as the IT department, working with eBoard for accessibility for candidate packets, as well as accessibility in campaigning. And then just generally the notion that eBoard is going to need the support of various different bodies at UCLA to reach their goals in terms of improving voter turnout. Yeah.
Does anybody have any comments, concerns?
Oh, should I raise my hand or should I just
Oh,
say
sorry,
that.
I didn't see. Go ahead, Christina, and then Zuleika.
Sorry. Well, I had asked this question earlier to Alfred and he answered it, but I thought it might be helpful to like have it said out loud. So I don't know if Alfred is allowed to answer it or not.
Can I pass it to Alfred to answer?
I was just wondering kind of like if the deans had been ignoring the e-board, like why it would help to have USAC post a resolution if they like weren't interested in USAC stuff before that.
Yeah, you can answer, Alfred. I'll pass it to you.
Okay. Yeah, like I think what's the problem right now is that many departments believe that elections board is spam. Maybe they think that we don't really have to communicate any like important information. And I think that this resolution will definitely, I think, legitimize eBoard's efforts to connect with them and just in the higher up so that they're aware of what we're trying to do. Because I honestly think that many departments don't really know what the elections board is and what it does for the students, and just like the importance of communicating what election board needs to the student body. So I really think that this resolution at least will be a step in the right direction to raise awareness about what elections board does and why it's so important that students are engaged with the student body.
Zuleika, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that it's really important that this resolution addresses like the department's encouraging them to participate and really spread the word, because I feel like last year a lot of the voter turnout was dependent on the candidates, and that was very stressful and I think it just took a lot of work for the students to try to get out the vote. And I think that in some part it should also be up to the departments and other like campus spaces, because they are more connected to the students, and it's really hard for like 15, or I think we had like 30 candidates to try to reach the whole undergraduate population. So I really like that the resolution addresses that, and it encourages departments to basically speak to students and make them more aware that elections are important because it involves their voices. So
Awesome. Anybody else? Well, thank you everybody for your comments. Zuleika, I think the last point that you made was really important. The amount of get out the vote efforts and outreach that we had to do was ridiculous during a pandemic. And I definitely think that these other departments should be helping alleviate that and just supporting student government in general. But yeah, if no one has anything else, a motion. Y'all, a motion.
I motion to approve a resolution in support of the Election Board's Engagement Initiative.
I second. Or no, wait. Yeah.
Awesome. Justin motions, Bree seconds. Gen Rep 2,
Yes.
Gen Rep 3,
Yes.
AAC,
Yes.
CEC. Oh, okay. CAC,
Yes.
CSC,
Yes.
BAC,
Yes.
SWC,
Yeah.
TSR.
yes.
Okay, cool. By a vote of 9-0, the motion passes and a resolution in support of the election board's engagement initiative has passed. Thank you all, and thank you, Alfred, for coming and presenting that to us. Let us know how it goes. Awesome. Well, we've done it again, y'all. We finished in under 3 hours. We are concluding this meeting at 9:52. Thank you all for coming and staying despite your tiredness.
The recording has stopped.
Okay.